My father gave his law firm to my incompetent brother just because I'm a woman, so I sued him. Growing up, that name was everything. It was on the building, the letterhead, the business cards. It was a legacy, one I thought I'd inherit. Instead, it became a weight. When my father stood up at the firm's annual meeting and named my brother as his successor, something broke inside me. It wasn't just a decision. It was the way he said it, with no hesitation, no acknowledgement of my years of work. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, staring at the table while applause filled the room. My chest tightened. I'd spent my life proving I belonged, only to realize I'd been invisible all along. From childhood, the firm was my world. I spent weekends in my father's office, flipping through case files while other kids played sports or hung out with friends. By 10, I could explain the difference between a plaintiff and a defendant. By 15, I was reading deposition transcripts for fun. Law wasn't just a career path. It was my identity. My father encouraged it, or so I thought. He'd let me sit in on meetings, hand me old briefs to study, tell clients I was his future partner. I believed him. I built my life around that belief. School came easy. I graduated high school early, went to college, then law school, all on an accelerated track. My grades were perfect. My internships were at top firms, not my father's, because I wanted to earn my place without his name. When I passed the bar on my first try, I felt ready. I joined his firm as a junior associate, not asking for special treatment. I took small cases at first, contract disputes, minor civil suits. I won them. Clients started asking for me by name. Senior partners noticed. I thought my father did too. But there were signs, even then, that I ignored. At firm dinners, he'd introduce my brother as the future of the firm. Even though my brother was still in college, partying through his undergrad years. I told myself it was just talk, that my father was old-fashioned, that my work would speak for itself. I stayed late, reviewed every detail of every case, volunteered for pro bono work to build my reputation. I didn't just want to be good, I wanted to be undeniable. I thought if I was perfect, there'd be no excuse to overlook me. Looking back, I see how naive that was. Perfection didn't matter. Not when the rules were never meant for me. My brother's presence in the firm started as a footnote. He didn't care about law growing up. While I was buried in books, he was out with friends, barely scraping through high school. College wasn't much different. He changed majors 3 times, settling on something vague like business administration. I didn't judge him for it. We were different people, and I figured he'd find his own path. But when he was 26, my father brought him into the firm. No discussion, no warning. One day, my brother was just there, sitting in on meetings, his nameplate on an office door. He wasn't ready. He hadn't gone to law school yet, so he started as a consultant, whatever that meant. I'd see him in the hallways, chatting with paralegals, leaving early. When he decided to pursue law, it felt like a whim. He enrolled in a mid-tier law school, one our father approved of without question. I helped him study for the bar exam, not because I wanted to, but because my father asked. My brother failed the first time. Then the second. On his 3rd try he passed. I congratulated him, but it was hard to ignore the gap between us. I'd been practicing for years by then, leading cases, winning trials. He was still learning how to file a motion. When he joined the firm as an associate, things got worse. I'd prepare for client meetings, outline strategies, and he'd show up late, asking basic questions. I'd explain terms like residential judicata, or statute of limitations, in front of clients, trying to keep things professional. They'd look at me, not him, when they needed answers. But my father didn't see it. He'd pat my brother on the back, call him a natural. I told myself it didn't matter, that my cases spoke for themselves. I took on bigger files, corporate disputes, high-stakes litigation. I won a multi-million-dollar settlement for a client, got my name in legal journals. My father sent me a brief email. Good work. That was at the firm's annual retreat was always a big deal. Partners, associates, staff, all gathered at a resort for speeches, awards, networking. I'd been going since I was a kid, back when my father would parade me around as his protege. This year felt different. I just closed a major case, one that saved a client from bankruptcy. People were talking about it. I thought maybe this was my moment. Maybe my father would finally say it, name me as his successor, or at least a partner. The main event was a dinner on the last night. Everyone was there, dressed up, tables set with firm-branded napkins. My father stood at the podium, glass in hand. He thanked the staff, praised the partners. Then he got to the future. He said the firm needed strong leadership, someone to carry the name forward. I sat up straighter, heart pounding. He said my brother's name. Just like that. No explanation, no mention of me. The room clapped. I couldn't move. My face burned, but I kept my eyes on my plate. My brother stood, smiling, shaking hands. People congratulated him. I saw younger associates, women I'd mentored, looking at me, confused. I wanted to disappear. After dinner, I stayed in my seat while others mingled. A senior partner, one I respected, stopped by. He didn't say much, just rested a hand on my shoulder. It felt like pity. I left early, drove back to the city alone. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just felt empty. That night I replayed every moment of my career. Every late night, every win, every time I'd gone above and beyond. I thought about my father's words over the years, how he'd called me talented, but never essential. I thought about my brother, who'd coasted into a role I'd earned. It wasn't just unfair. It was deliberate. I didn't sleep. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not anymore. The week after the retreat, I went to my father's office. It was early, before most of the staff arrived. I'd spent days turning the announcement over in my mind, trying to find a reason that wasn't what it seemed. I needed to hear it from him. His office was the same as always, dark wood, shelves of law books, a photo of him and my brother at a golf tournament. I sat across from him, my hands steady. I asked why he chose my brother. I listed my cases, my wins, my years of work. I asked what I'd done wrong. He leaned back in his chair, looking tired. He didn't answer directly. He said the firm needed someone who could project strength, someone clients would trust instinctively. He said my brother was the right fit for that. I pressed him. I asked if it was because I was a woman. He paused too long, then said it wasn't about that, but about stability. He talked about tradition, about the firm's image. He never mentioned my record. He never said I wasn't good enough, just that my brother was better suited. I left his office feeling smaller than I ever had. That conversation changed everything. I'd spent years believing effort would outweigh bias. I'd ignored the times he'd dismissed my ideas in meetings, the way he'd steer big clients to male partners. I told myself it was just how things were, that I could change his mind. Now I saw it clearly. It wasn't about my work. It was about who he thought belonged at the top. My brother's inexperience didn't matter. His gender did. I went back to my desk and worked through the day. I smiled at colleagues, reviewed files, met with a client. But inside I was done. I started noticing things I'd brushed off before. How my father never asked me to lead major cases. How he'd interrupt me but listen to my brother ramble. I realized I'd been proving myself to someone who'd already decided I didn't count. I resigned the following Monday. I typed the letter in 10 minutes, printed it, and left it on my father's desk before he got in. I didn't explain myself. I packed my office, files, books, a few photos, and walked out by noon. No one stopped me. I didn't tell anyone why I was leaving. I just couldn't stay in a place that had erased me. Leaving wasn't enough, though. I'd given a decade to that firm. I'd built its reputation with every case I won, every client I kept. I wasn't going to let that go quietly. I rented a small apartment and set up a temporary office there. I started going through everything I had from my time at the firm. I pulled emails where my father praised my work but gave promotions to others. I found meeting notes where my strategies were used without credit. I dug up HR records showing my performance reviews, always flawless, next to my brother's, which were spotty at best. I contacted a lawyer I knew from law school, someone who specialized in discrimination cases. We met over coffee, and I laid out what happened. She listened, took notes, and said I had a case. Not just for discrimination, but for breach of contract, since my father had promised me a future in the firm's leadership during my hiring. I hired her. We filed the lawsuit within a month. I named my father, my brother, and the firm as defendants. I claimed damages for lost opportunities and emotional distress. The filing was public. I didn't expect that to matter, but it did. A local legal blog picked it up, then a bigger one. People started talking. I got messages from former colleagues, some shocked, some saying they'd seen it coming. A few clients reached out, offering support. I didn't respond to most. I wasn't ready to explain myself. I just wanted the truth out. The lawsuit gained traction faster than I expected. By the second month, it was more than a legal filing, it was a story. Local news outlets covered it, framing it as a family dispute turned corporate scandal. Legal forums online dissected every detail. I didn't read most of it. The attention felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of everyone's opinions. Former clients started calling, some offering to testify about my work, others asking to move their cases to me. I hadn't planned to start practicing again so soon, but I took on a few, working out of my apartment. It kept me grounded. The firm's reputation took a hit. I saw it in small ways at first: clients pulling accounts, mentions of cancelled contracts. A major corporate client, one I'd worked with for years, publicly switched to a competitor. My father's name, once untouchable in legal circles, became a talking point. He issued a statement through the firm's PR team, calling the lawsuit a misunderstanding and promising a resolution. It was vague, polished, nothing like him. My brother stayed quiet. No interviews, no comments. I wondered if he was embarrassed, or just waiting it out. Discovery was brutal. My lawyer and I submitted evidence, emails, performance reviews, meeting records. Every document showed the same pattern. My work was exemplary, my brother's was mediocre, yet he'd been chosen. The firm's defense team argued I'd left voluntarily, that there was no promise of leadership, that my father's decision was about business, not bias. They tried to paint me as emotional, unstable. It stung, but I expected it. I'd seen those tactics in courtrooms before. I kept working. I met with witnesses, reviewed depositions, prepared for hearings. My lawyer was sharp, methodical. She found a memo from 2 years earlier where my father had written that male leadership inspires confidence. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was close. When we presented it, the firm's team looked rattled. I felt a flicker of satisfaction, not because I was winning, but because the truth was finally visible. Mediation came 6 months in. The firm's lawyer suggested it, probably hoping to avoid a trial. We met in a neutral conference room, me, my lawyer, my father, my brother, and their team. My father looked older, his suit slightly wrinkled. My brother wouldn't need my eyes. I sat straight, hands folded, listening as their lawyer offered a settlement. It was a large sum, enough to start over comfortably. They wanted me to drop the case and sign a non-disclosure agreement. I declined. Money wasn't the point. I wanted the firm to admit what happened. I wanted it in writing that I'd been passed over because of my gender. My lawyer backed me up, laying out our evidence again. My record, my brother's lack of qualifications, the memo. The room went silent. My father stared at the table. Their lawyer said they'd need time to consider. The case went to trial a month later. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, former colleagues, even a few law school friends. I testified first, walking through my career, the retreat, my father's words. I kept my voice steady, though my hands shook under the table. My father testified too. He stuck to the firm's line, saying his decision was about strategy, not bias. But he faltered under cross-examination, contradicting himself about my performance. My brother's testimony was worse. He admitted he hadn't been ready for leadership. The judge's face stayed unreadable. The ruling came quickly. The judge found in my favor on discrimination and breach of contract. The firm was ordered to pay damages and issue a public apology. My brother was removed as managing partner. The courtroom stayed quiet as the judge spoke. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. But I also felt free. The truth was on record now, undeniable.